This is Steve from Boxing UK, and it's an absolute pleasure to be joined by Matthew Macklin. How are you, Matthew? A rare weekend off for you?
Yeah, exactly. So just a bit of downtime, enjoying it. We had some great weather during the week, kind of a bit colder now, but hey ho.
Good man. Are you watching the Frampton fight tomorrow as a fan?
Yeah, we'll be absolutely, definitely.
Reckon he's going to do it? 3-weight world champion?
Yeah, I think he can. Look, he's the better fighter, no doubt. More talented, cleverer. I think better in every department, apart from he's obviously smaller. So the physical, he doesn't have the physical advantages. And also, he has experience, but he's also a lot of miles on the clock now. He's 34 years old, which is pretty old for a featherweight, super featherweight. He's had a hard career, a long career. So, Herring is a lot fresher. But listen, you definitely, you'd like to think that Carl can get over the line and win that third world title at third weight.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. Matt, it's a rare opportunity to look back while we've had this break. What do you make of 2021 so far? We started with a big shock, didn't we, with Josh Warrington?
Yeah, man, that was a shock. Felt really sorry for him. He just looked like he just couldn't even get into, get out of first gear. He couldn't get into first gear. He just looked like it was a bad spar. We've all had them come down the gym and some kid comes in and you use this kid and he's a world title fight to him and you just can't get going. And all of a sudden, he rumbles you over 4 or 5 rounds of the spar. It's happened, So, and I think that's just what it looked like to me. I don't think that the guy he fought was any great fight or anything like that. Obviously heavy-handed, could hit a bit, but Josh just stood right in front of him to get hit. It was a bizarre performance, I thought. But like I say, just one that to me, it just screamed out that he just couldn't get going at all, couldn't get up for it. Someone like him as well, who's used to boxing in such a loud atmosphere with to be in an empty arena then, it must have been a struggle for him.
Can you see, or did you see enough in that fight and knowing Josh as you know, Josh, to think he'll be able to exact revenge?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it'll be a problem. Look, your man's going to know now that he has the power to take. Look, the rematch will be harder than what the first fight should have been. Because now this kid knows he's got the power to take him out. So if Josh is swarming all over him and making it hard in there, the kid's going to dig maybe a little bit deeper than he would have done initially. Because he's going to think, well, I can just, the fact that he knows he's got the power to take him out might mean he might hang in there that bit longer if the going gets tough. Also, Josh will have a few possibly mental demons, confidence issues, perhaps, and maybe not. Everyone's different. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, 2021's been a bit of a mad year. Dillian, I thought, was brilliant the other night. Jumped on Povetkin straight away. So there was no signs of him being gun shy. He just jumped on him. Metcalf and Cheeseman was a classic, which we thought it would be. Yeah, it's been good. It's been so far so good.
Can I ask you about Metcalf and Cheeseman, Matt? Ted's been in a few of those wars, and whilst it's absolutely brilliant for us as a viewer, he's only 25. How many more of those can he go through?
Well, that's it. Who knows as well? That's another thing. Everyone's different. Some people, have had so many hard fights and wars, and you see them in later life retirement, and they're as fresh as a daisy. You see other guys that, all right, they had a few hard fights or a couple of bad knockouts, nothing major, not in comparison. And they're not in good shape now. So I think everyone's tolerance, is different. Everyone's 100% fit is different. Some people are just have got born with amazing stamina, or they develop amazing stamina. Their 100% fit is higher than someone else's. So it's the same with sort of punch resistance. The same with miles on the clock. Some people can have tough fight after tough fight after tough fight, and you think, how long can these people keep going for? But they do. One of my maybe concerns for Cheeseman going into that fight was that Metcalf was fresher, although he was older and had more fights. Certainly in terms of hard fights, miles on the clock, he was a lot fresher, and I thought that might, possibly give him the upper hand if it becomes a grueler. But I think it was Cheeseman's experience that did give him the upper hand. So it's a fine line. being battle hardened, being seasoned, being experienced, their pluses. If there's too much of it, then you might become shot worn, shots, then, you know, miles on the clock. So, and like I say, there's no, we all predict and we guesstimate and all this, but everyone's different.
Yeah. And talking to Dillian, he was never in any doubt, was it, after the first round? He shook Povetkin with the top of that headshot and he was in control ever since, really,
Well,
wasn't
there was a lot of talk that Dillian might come out and be cagey. Because, you know, in the first fight, he was quite cagey. He was boxing, tight defence, good jabs, straight right hands. Wasn't hooking a lot, you know, sinking a few body shots, but he was generally keeping it long and drilling him with the straight shots. Ironically, he came out fast and just jumped on him. He jumped on Povetkin. But I think you got to love Whyte, haven't you? Because he's a risk taker. You know what I mean? He backs himself, and I love that.
You know, where do you think he goes from here, Matt? There was talk of Ruiz or Wilder.
Look, I don't think you look at his resume over the last few years. He hasn't had many easy fights, has he? Do you know what I mean? So I think if Eddie was talking about maybe taking him stateside and getting him a run out, you couldn't begrudge him that, could you? You know what I mean? The only thing with these run outs, if it's a run out, make sure it's a run out, because if it's a middle of the road fight and he struggles to get up for it and the other guy boxes out of his skin, what's meant to be a stay busy fight ends up being a hard night's work. Case in talking about Josh Warrington.
Yeah. We even saw that with Dillian in Saudi, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you a couple of questions from a commentary point of view, Matt?
Yeah.
First one, I have to ask you, you are in the bubble, aren't you, every week?
No, we go down I'll go down on the day. Right.
Because all of the matchroom and stuff and the videos that get put out, we never see you, Matt, so that explains that one.
Yeah.
Just a difference in commentary. We've sat behind you many times ringside. I understand that you're a little bit distant from the ring. What's the difference at the moment in big night boxing with no fans and everything?
You know, obviously, when there's loads of fans there, there's generally a build up as the arena fills up. There's a build up of anticipation to the main event, and that just happens naturally, organically, as the night progresses and the levels of the fights and everything progresses with it. With there being no fans, you know, and we're further back from the ring, you've got to be conscious to sort of get into it, you know, because you've got to convey that atmosphere. Not that there is an atmosphere, but you've got to try and convey the magnitude of the fight. You know, the sort of the excitement and the volume of your voice and your commentary should be sort of proportional to what's on the line. You know, now don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can't get excited if it's a southern area barn burner at your call. Of course you can get excited, but you know what I'm saying is if it's Madison Square Garden, Joshua Ruiz, that's you're hitting the levels, aren't you? Where if you and you do that naturally happens because you're engrossed in the fight all day. You know, you're commentating the heavyweight championship of the world, so it's not something you're blagging. That naturally happens. You know what I mean? Because you know you're in that moment, aren't you? It's Madison Square Garden. It's the heavyweight title. You know, if you're honest with yourself, the excitement has been building all week to that point. So naturally that happens. And then you got fights like Pursoon and Taylor on the undercard. You're already there on the ring walks. But, you know, like I say, if it's a southern area title in your call, you might be going down expecting whatever level of fight, and all of a sudden it's a cracker. You're still going to hit levels. You're still going to be like, wow, this is a great fight because you're going to be in the moment, aren't you? Yeah. But I think you've just got to be, you know, if you're like that on a 4-rounder, it probably wouldn't sound real because you think you can't be that excited, mate. It's a 4-rounder of 2 novices, and you're having a heart attack, like you're in Madison Square Garden with Ruiz Joshua. You know what I mean? It's like it's not, you know. But like I say, that's not something that you fake or put on. I think that just happens. But although like I say, for these fights that have been happening behind closed doors, we're away from the ring. But as much as anything, I'm a boxing fan. As much as anything, I'm a boxing fan. So I'm still looking forward to these fights, and I'm excited about these fights. So I'm still gonna get into it, because that's just gonna happen naturally. But it's not. It's not this. It's you don't. I don't know. The atmosphere's not there, is it? You know, you do miss it. You do miss it. The fighters miss it. We miss it. I imagine the fans miss it. You know, like I say, certain fighters in particular, Josh Warrington, I really think he struggled. I know you can say it's the same for both guys. Yes and no. It's not the same for that Mexican guy, because he's never boxed in front of a big crowd in his life. You know what I mean? So it wasn't the same for him, and he's fighting. I say a former world champion. He was only former because he vacated it. Really, he was a world champion, undefeated fighter, top of the division. So you know that's. He wouldn't need a crowd to get massively up for it. Do you know what I mean? Where Warrington coming down to box, you know, a hand-picked opponent in what should be a stay busy fight, no crowd, no atmosphere. You've gone from boxing Frampton, Galahad's, you know, 50,000 people or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard for him. It was evident it was hard for him. So, and from you know, it's not as bad for us. We were only commentating. But I think it affects everyone across the board to some degree. I mean, you only have to watch the football. Not the same, is it? No crowd there. You know, it's like you're watching a kickabout after training. You know.
Yeah. Well, Matt, as you can see, I'm an Everton fan. We beat Liverpool for the first time after God knows how long, and there's no one there to see it. So I totally agree with you on that point, mate. Matt, can I ask you about the criticism that you get? Because commentating must be a thankless job. You're paid to call the fight as you see it. You do. You must check social media and see that sometimes that you get battered with how you've called the fight. How do you respond to that? Or how do you take that personally?
Oh, no, well, I've realised that's going to happen every single week, because every single week someone's going to win and someone's going to lose, and especially. I think this year we've had some really good fights, close fights, hard fights. So if you're in a close fight, some fights could go either way. There's a lot of fights there. And you think, fucking hell, it's a 10. So first of all, it's a 10-point must system. That's how you score, and I'm scoring it at the end of round one. I key in to the producer 10-9, whichever way, and then at the end, it just gets added up. So I'm not like trying to scheme I don't care who wins, by the way. I have got no horse in the race. It means nothing to me who wins. It's absolutely irrelevant. You know what I mean? What I do care about is fair play, integrity within the sport, and my own credibility as a pundit and a commentator, more so than, you know, who I know. I don't know all the lads, because you do get to know the lads over the years, but I try not to get too pally, because, you know, ultimately I've got to call it as I see it, and that's it. What did make me laugh, there was a fight, I think it was, it might have been Ritson against Miguel Vasquez. No, a fight where, do you like the few single hard shots that Ritson landed, or do you prefer the work rate, the volume of punches that Diaz? Now, I thought Diaz was winning the rounds, not by a lot, but he was throwing punches in bunches, combinations, and while I absolutely agree that Ritson was blocking a lot of them, there was still plenty getting through. Now, then you'd have Ritson go bang with a stiff jab and snap the head back. Then Diaz would go brrr, other combinations, and Ritson would go bang, snap their head back. So I'm thinking at the end of the round, do you like those 6 or 7 combinations that were partially blocked from Vasquez, or do you like the 3 single hard jabs that Ritson landed? Now, it's a feeling, isn't it? You know, at the end of the round, who would you rather be? Who do you think landed the most shots? Who do you think won the round? And I was going, obviously, Vasquez, as I think most people did. Yeah, on the night, Ritson got it. And what made me laugh was, most people, by the way, on social media agreed with it, that it was a bad decision. But there was one guy from Newcastle, and I looked who he followed him, and he's obviously mates with Ritson, you know. And he comes at me saying, Sky, Matchroom, biased. And I'm like, mate, you're Lewis Ritson's mate. Who do you think's biased? You know what I mean? Like, I don't care who wins. You're his pal. You were rooting for him. You know what I mean? So obviously, and by the way, I'll tell you this as well. A lot of these people that go on afterwards and give loads of shit online, 90% of those people, I guarantee you, didn't sit there with a pen and paper and score that fight 10 on a 10-point must system, round by round, as it's happening. They just watch the fight as a fan, as most do, keeping a rough idea. They're thinking, yeah, I think he's winning now. I think he's winning now. Oh, that was a good round. He's winning now. And then at the end, they think, that was a robbery. That's how they come to their conclusion. And then dish out shit on Twitter. I guarantee you 90% of those people didn't sit down with a pen and paper, scoring it on a 10-point must system. Guarantee you that.
It's almost become a national sport, though, Matt. When you're on social media on a Saturday night, watching the grief you get, mate. You must have thick skin some weekends, though, mate, because some of it's pretty near the knuckle.
I've realised it goes with the territory.
Good man. Can we look ahead, Matt? A couple of fights that's coming up. First one's Billy Joe against Canelo. First of all, can he do it? If he can, how did he do it?
I think if anyone can do it in and around that way, it's Billy Joe. He's certainly got the style. We know that is a style that generally has given Canelo the most problems. Lara, even Austin Trout, you know. But look, he beat them. You know, the Lara one was debatable. Obviously, a lot of people thought he didn't win that one. But look, it's clearly a style. Even Danny Jacobs. And then I thought that first 6 rounds against Danny Jacobs, Canelo put on an absolute boxing master clinic. When Jacobs switched southpaw, it changed things because it broke his rhythm. You know, Canelo gets into this rhythm and you just can't. He just flows, man. It's just on a flow and it's just effortless. And he was working off Jacobs' jab. His own jab's brilliant. He's slipping, he's sliding, he's rolling underneath, he's pot shotting. You know, magic. But when Jacobs switched southpaw, it broke his rhythm. It took Canelo's jab away, and what he was doing, and he couldn't slip inside the jab and close the distance. Yeah, he could slip out. If he was going to slip left, it meant he was slipping outside. If he was slipping this way, he's going to throw the right hand, which is further away, so it's more risky. So it just slowed everything down. And when it slowed everything down, and it took his rhythm away, and Jacobs was just shoe shining in there, just going brrr, 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 and they weren't really doing anything, but he was nicking the rounds. He nicked a few rounds that way and made it tighter. So Austin Trout, Lara, and even Jacobs switching southpaw, you can see that he struggles with it. Throwing on top of that Billy Joe's movement, you know, he's a nightmare opponent, really, style-wise for Canelo. But he's Canelo, and he's never looked better. You know, is he going to be able to look as good as that against Billy Joe? I think he'll struggle with Billy Joe's style, but he's Canelo, so I don't know.
Do you worry about the judges, Matt? We spoke to Mark Tibbs yesterday, and he said Billy will box Canelo's head off. But we've also spoke to Dave Caldwell, and Dave Caldwell said Billy's capable of it, but he just can't get touched for at least 7 rounds because of the way the judges will favour Canelo.
Oh no, listen, I think Billy Joe will be outboxing him certainly in parts. Early on, especially, I think, until Canelo starts to try and get a bit of a read of him. But like you say, I mean, if you watch the Amir Khan fight against Canelo, Khan was boxing so well, wasn't he, early on? I think most people would have had him winning, but yeah, he was way down on the cards, so I don't know.
If I give you a $5, Matt, where would you put your money?
Well, listen, I'm rooting for Billy Joe, you know what I mean? So, you know, I hope Billy Joe can do it. And look, he's definitely got the tools, and he's got the ability. I mean, how old was Billy Joe the last time he lost a fight? He was, I don't know. I lost in the Olympics, but he was 18 years old in the Olympics, and he lost to that Cuban, and it was close. But Billy Joe can box for fun. He can box with anyone. You know what I mean? I think his inactivity and his level of opposition has probably hurt him a little bit these last few years. If you compare that to Canelo, you know, coming into the fight as well.
Can we ask you about another one, Matt? And it'll be the one that you'll probably get asked more questions about than anything else this year. Joshua Fury. Is it going to happen?
I think it's going to happen. I think Fury, and I said that from day dot. I think his movement, his jab, his speed, his upper body movement. I mean, Joshua's a brilliant boxer. You know what I mean? But you can see Joshua's been taught. You know, he's well schooled. He's technically textbook. Does what you're supposed to do. Where Fury's just natural. You know what I mean? He's just developed this kind of slick style now. He varies it all up. He's hard to read. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think you got to. I think Fury's the favourite in that one.
Do you think we might get that in the UK, Matt?
Fingers crossed.
Indeed. Two more, I promise. Just a personal one. Is there a fight that you want to see in 2021, Matt?
I want to see Terence Crawford and Errol Spence. That's the fight. Outside of Fury and Joshua, that's it for me. That's the fight in boxing that needs to happen. You know, there's some great ones in the lightweight division, but I don't mind the lightweight division. Garcia and Haney and Lopez. They're still young. You know what I mean? Those fights can marinate. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're big enough now, but if they do, if it isn't a year or two, it's okay. But, you know, Spence and Crawford, they're not getting any younger. We don't want to see a Mayweather Pacquiao. Yeah. You know, we want to see it happen now.
Definitely. And last one, just someone to watch. You obviously know your stuff inside out, Matt. Is there somebody domestically to keep our eye on?
I can't, you throw me now off the top of my head. I've got like a blank. I can't think. There's so many, isn't there? I don't know. There's a few, isn't there? There's that Dennis McCann looks good. Hobie Price looks good. I mean, listen, they're young kids. They haven't fought anyone, and nor should they have at this point. They're just developing and growing, but they both look talented. Plenty of speed, a lot of self-confidence, which is crucial. No, they look good. There's loads. I mean, this could end now, and I could think of someone else. I can't off the top of my head, but they're the first two that jump to mind.
Lovely. Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate your time.
Welcome.
Thank you very much,
Cheers.
Matt. I hope to catch up ringside soon. Next time I tap
Cheers.
you on the shoulder, you'll know who I am.
That's it. Thanks.
Have a lovely weekend, Matt. You take care.
Cheers.